time specifically, Congress says will never be federalized. The president can never take these troops away from the governors. So with that in mind, Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, that no state shall enter into a foreign treaty or maintain a standing army or ships of war in time of peace without consent of Congress. And then it goes, nor engage in war unless. Did you hear that word unless?
Unless.
Nor engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as shall not commit to the land. Whoa! This invests every state governor with the independent power as commander-in-chief of his state militia to determine whether or not his state's been invaded, and if so, to engage in war. And war means he descends upon, sort out the economic refugees from those who are bearing arms, and those who are bearing arms are treated quite differently from the economic refugees. They're rounded up by the state militia and put in prisoner of war camps. And then we sort out those who are in uniform from those who are not.
Sure. Right.
Those who are in uniform are protected under the rules of war. Those who are not in uniform, who are foreign nationals bearing arms, should be treated as spies. What's the penalty for spies? Espionage.
Yeah, right. And the penalty for that is obviously death.
And when the White House discovers that a state has stood up for itself and mustered the militia and has captured 22,811 foreign nationals under detention, and the state militia is convening military courts-martial to try as spies those who are under arms and not in uniform.
Why did none of the candidates, including Trump, who is very bellicose about his stance on illegals, why did none of these people say what you just said right now?
Because the news media are propaganda mills that will immediately focus the fullness of their broadsides and artillery and blast to smithereens anybody who speaks the truth. In the world of political correctness, it is dangerous, and in the viewpoint of those who are in charge, probably seditious, to challenge the status quo with the U.S. Constitution. And let's face it, I'm an outspoken individual. I'm a retired state administrative judge. I've been elected or appointed to official posts in all three branches of state and local government. I've been elected as a representative and a legislator. I served a stint as deputy court administrator for the state courts in Missouri's second most populous urban county. And I've had multiple appointments in the executive branch. In the world of international diplomacy and trade. During the Iranian hostage crisis back in 1979, I was approached by an individual employed by the United States Central Intelligence Agency out of the Chicago office and was requested to act as a CIA asset to recruit Iranian students on American college campuses. And I did that because the Iranians had overrun the American embassy in Tehran, and the way it was spoke to me, that they had captured a whole bunch of documents, but they lacked sufficient numbers of people who could read Farsi, who could translate it into English. And they were reaching to anybody that could resolve that problem. So the guy from the Chicago CIA office came up to me literally while I was eating a hamburger at the college student inn, sat down at my table, and asked me to recruit Iranian students and gave me kits that had a big manila envelope with the seal of the CIA and the return address, and inside was the application form, fingerprint card, and an envelope for photographs, and a brochure about the CIA. And so I went and
being accosted. God forbid you should speak the truth about anything. Yeah, absolutely correct.
In that capacity, I was a police colonel.
But again, sir, what is I understand the media, they're gonna be accosted, but what is so wrong? What is I'm looking for a greater why here, a greater why. Why don't these
When
people?
you start looking at exotic problems and you hear hoofbeats, look for horses, not zebras. So why is it that the American public is being duped by the news media and lied to by our government? Well, there's talk afoot about the future of a North American Union marching the sovereignty of the United States
Right.
Mexico, which is an excuse to ditch the U.S. Constitution and whip it the Bill of Rights. A North American Union would not have the right to keep and bear arms, in my viewpoint. And then they already have the European Union. So wouldn't phase two simply be, let's merge the North American Union with the European Union so we have one nation from the borders of Poland and the Russian Federation down to the border of Mexico and Honduras.
Right.
One nation. One taxing authority. One nation of slaves.
True. Absolutely. Seriously. But what does this mean? What does this mean for our national debt? What does this mean as far as, or is this a way of assuaging the debt? That if we
the reality situation, we're borrowing money from Red China and other creditors by issuing interest-bearing bonds.
Yes.
And having borrowed money at interest, we now turn around and play federal Santa Claus and, like a drunk, start handing out dollars and give away free gifts and endowments to nations that hate our guts. Look at how many billion were given to Iran while they're still holding street rallies, death to America, death to Israel. Why in the world would we borrow money from one creditor to give it away to parties that hate our guts and are openly planning our destruction?
And Rand Paul spoke a little bit about this tonight.
Yeah, and with the open borders, the fig leaf is the economic refugees that want a better life, but the real deal is the hardcore sleeper cells of terrorists. And let's face it, in addition to people from Central and South America and Mexico coming to the United States for a better life, we've got a wide open border for the benefit of Cuba and North Korea and Iran, Russia. So we know that their espionage agencies are alive and well. Yes. And if they can infiltrate people under the auspices of open borders, they're going to form sleeper cells. And at a given moment, any of them can uprise, alone or with others, to cause mischief from within. And we might not even recover from it. Phil Duke was made small enough to be an artillery piece. So what if Iran goes into production of field nuclear weapons of 105 millimeter artillery size?
Right, seriously. And they've got these billions of dollars now that is just going to be released. I mean, come on. You and I know, Judge, and anybody on the internet knows, you can put a friggin' nuclear bomb in a goddamn suitcase today. Yes, it'll be small, but it'll screw up your day, won't it? Go ahead, sir.
Oh, yes. A small nuclear device will create a fireball 1 to 3 miles across.
Right.
And the shock wave will go 75 to 100 miles. And that's a little one. So, anything's possible. And the United States has become a complacent, fat, lazy, and couch-potato nation. And the leftists are teaching our youngsters, teens, and people in young 20s
And
we bring in all these refugees seeking asylum from the Obama administration from Syria. I think there's 300,000 or 400,000 been granted asylum from Syria. Recall that the whole Benghazi operation was a gun running operation. They were buying from the street in Libya, Benghazi, rockets and weapons and machine guns.
right, and we're not classifying
Rebels in Syria,
we're not
which included Al Qaeda of Iraq, now ISIS, and we were arming these people.
yeah, right, and we're not classifying these people that are coming into the country either. It's like, oh, you're a refugee. Yes, I'm a refugee, and ignore that vest that I have
Well,
strapped
why
under
is it
my.
that Iraqi Christians were brought into the United States and were not given asylum, but instead were detained and put in prison? So why
That's
is
a
it
good
the
point.
Obama administration is taking Muslims, putting them on Section 8 housing and food stamps and unemployment compensation, and being undervetted? We, the people, are paying these people welfare benefits, and we know they're conspiring against us.
Right, exactly.
Not a month goes by without a new outrage from an act of Islamic Jihad. And one time we used to laugh. Why are we fighting in Iraq? And the George Bush administration says we're over there, so we don't have to fight them here.
That's absolutely correct.
Obama pulled the plug prematurely on the war of Iraq, and now it's a vacuum filled by ISIS, and we are now fighting them here. We have beheadings from jihadists in workplaces in Oklahoma, don't we?
That's absolutely true. Ladies and gentlemen, the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk in Awesome Rock, broadcasting here on the Northern Lights Radio Network, WNLMradio.com. Judge, I want to shift gears a little bit here. I'm going to read a little bit. It's going to go into my blog over the next week. I gotta tighten it up a little bit. And on August 20th, we have a major Tea Party meeting going on here in Worcester, Massachusetts. And then September 22nd, we're going to welcome author Charles Murray at Harvard University. And Meat and Potatoes is going to be there. We are the main videographers who are going to be filming and covering this event. And we are working on a one-on-one with Charles Murray. But I want to read a little bit here, and Judge, I want to shift gears here. It's more towards what's going on here as far as the Confederate flag. I'm just going to read the first paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole diatribe. I'm just going to read the first paragraph, and sir, you'll understand where I'm going when you hear this. So here we go. The issues of removing vestiges of our heritage and labeling them as racist marks a disturbing chapter in our great republic. The demand to remove icons of our past is too uncomfortably close to what radical Islam is doing all over the Middle East with the destruction of ancient artifacts. Under Islam, there is only Islam, and before that was known as the Dark Time. George Orwell was very good at showing us how a totalitarian government can, and will, erase not only the past, but people themselves. If we can successfully erase the past while simultaneously indoctrinating entire generations of children, the stage is not only set for this new world order, it comes complete with empty-headed vassals eager to be filled with cause and purpose. Judge, take it from here, sir.
Okay. Well, historically, there was a Confederate States of America. They did have a battle. And there was a Civil War. And the Union did win that war. However, there are nuances in history that are deserving for the people to know. For instance, Illinois was a free state and a member of the Union. But it had one county where slavery was lawful. And in that county, they had a salt mine. So in free Illinois, they had one county with a salt mine with Negro slaves. That's historically true.
That is true.
And the reason they did that is because the state legislature had levied a state tax on salt one salt mine that to take the slaves away was regarded as being economic suicide for the state legislature and the state budget branch. So the history of the United States of America, even from the very beginning, the 1789 Constitution, is an anti-slavery document.
Right.
Because we had states in the South that were slave states, we realized that we could not abolish slavery, or those states could not ratify.
Nope, I think we lost him. Hang on, Judge. Hang on, Judge. Hang on. We're going to pause the tape.